All right. Good evening, everyone again. Welcome to Digitech Zeal. Okay, so I'll start by asking us. I know some of you have screenshotted and sent me your assignments. I think Mr. Clements is just sending. I know I have one other person who sent earlier today. And I want to believe that we are growing. Please, can I get a response from at least one person before we dive into our assignment for tonight?
Yes.
All right. So just a quick recap on what we have covered so far. I know I have somebody that is joining this particular section for the very first time, though the person has joined one of my previous sessions, but I'm not sure if he or she actually got to this point. So a way of assessing what we have achieved so far, as far Python programming is concerned, we started with the general introduction to Python, where we learned what Python as a programming language is all about. And then we have also looked at Python fundamentals. In other words, basic commands in Python. We started with comments notation. We also discussed Python print command. And then we talk about variable and its syntax. And then we also talk about I think we talk about operators. And then before operator, I know operator was our last class. What you are seeing on the screen is not actually uh, the last class activity. Now, I'm not sure if this is your class. So I know last class I used Google Colab. I told us I was having issue with my PyCharm. So I think I've restored it. Last class we talked about operators. Can anybody unmute and tell us within 2 minutes what we mean by operators, their uses in programming? Can I have anybody to explain that to us? That was actually the last topic. Can anybody try?
Yes, by word differentiate that the operators are special symbols that are used to perform operations. And then you
Perfect.
went along to say that in these operations, we can use them for calculation, compare data, assign values, test condition, and manipulate logical expressions. And you follow them one by one by
Good.
going through the types of the operators, the arithmetic, assignment operators, comparison operators, logical identity, membership, and bitwise. Then you follow them one by one, and we did examples. These are the things you taught us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clement. Mr. Clement, you are actually progressing. I remember when we wanted to start, you were a bit scared. I can see that your confidence is balanced now. We are doing well. Okay, so because of time, we just allow only one person, then we proceed. So this session is a very, very important section. So we are gradually advancing. So let me assume that from where we started from to that very aspect of the operator, the whole of that falls under Python basics or fundamentals, which are elementary or which are foundational aspects of Python. So as we proceed, you will now begin to see the impacts of those things that looks basic. And for anybody who is in this class that have not taken time to go and master those things they call basic, you will not see how they will be affecting you. So why I'm saying this, remember, I've already emphasized on it before, that never look down on those things that we spent the whole of that time on, because they are like the basics that we want to what? Advance on. Because from tonight's session, we are advancing into the intermediate aspect of what? Python. And we are introducing advanced data structure. So that is our focus tonight. Python. So please, you can start writing. Python advanced. Python advanced. Let me use cap lock. In fact, let me clear the whole of this. Python advanced data structure. Python advanced data structure. And that is going to be our focus. And I'm not sure we can even finish it. So this class is still going to span into the next meeting. And like I told us before now, we will get to a point where I feel that we are all solid. You know, we have gained reasonable knowledge. Then I will ask us if we are to increase the number of these. But for now, we are still going to leave it at this Sunday until I'm impressed that we can actually add additional day to it. Now, let's look at it from this angle. We have spent reasonable time to discuss Python basic or primitive data type. When we started looking at this whole topic, data type, remember I told us then that we have primitive or basic or primary data types, right? And I define them as set of data types that are already built within Python memory. And that is why when we step it up by looking at the data conversion, you saw how we were able to use the constructors. For example, now we saw how we were able to convert a string to an integer using the int constructor. And then you also saw how we were able to convert integer to string using the string word constructor. So what does that tell us? It means that those data type has their constructor built in the program. But when we talk about advanced data type, not just that, before I link it up to advanced data type, because I really want us to know what led to the discovery. Because when programming started, there was nothing like this advanced data structure. Everything was just a variable concept. That is why programs of those days, they are very slow, because they were unnecessarily consuming the memory space. Because then there was no advanced data structure that can hold multiple value. You notice that the variable concept, when we created a variable, for example, variable name, you can see that we were only able to store one value per variable. For example, if I store Prosper here now, Prosper here. So variable can only hold one value per time. In other words, Python allocates only one memory allocation, only one memory space to variable. So even if you write Prosper is from Nigeria, so you will not think that Python will store Prosper in a different memory location and then store what is another memory location. Whatever you have, whatever you enclose with the string, which represents what the text, will be stored in one memory location. I hope somebody is getting what I'm saying. Can I get a response? I just want to be sure that we are flowing. I hope that is clear. Good. So now let's assume that you want to create an application like INEC. Now, for example, INEC wants to store your biodata. INEC wants to store your biodata within their system. Now, instead of storing your name in a different bucket, then storing your maybe your first name in a different memory, store your middle name in a different memory, store your state in a different memory. What INEC is going to do, INEC will use a data structure that can hold multiple value in one memory location. And that is what brought about this advanced data structure that we are entering. So in summary, this advanced data structure was introduced in order to limit the number of memory consumption, in order to economize the program memory, in order to limit the numbers of variables. Because, for example, now I want to print my name. For example, I have to create a variable to store the first name. Then I want to print my age. I have to create another variable to store it. I want to print my state. I have to create, before I'm able to, or I'll be able to store all my information, I must have used up to like 10 different variables. So which means you are unnecessarily consuming using the memory space. And at the end of the day, that app will appear to be very slow in terms of what? Response. So advanced data structure was introduced to address that issue, to relieve program from storing things, in multiple places. So it helps to economize the memory space of a program. So let's have the general definition so that we can see what I've explained so far. So advanced data type, let me see if I can write it fast for the sake of those that are writing. So advanced data types are specialized they are specialized builds in data structure in Python used to store. Let me take it to the next line so that you can see everything. Used to store multiple. Used to store, organize, access, and manipulate collection of data efficiently. So in a simple term, we can say, just to summarize it, we can say these are data type where a single variable can store multiple values. Please, who is this? Are you? Are you? Please, we don't want to see your video. Please, if you can turn your video off, we will appreciate it. Mara Lee, are you? Ayo, I don't know how that name is spelled. Please, if you can hear me, kindly turn off your video, or you make sure that the video is stable. Thank you very much. All right, so in a very simple definition, we can say the advanced data types, they are used for holding multiple value, unlike the variable that can only hold one value in a memory location. So we are going to be looking at them one after the other, and also look at some functions or method that Python has to manipulate the content within this advanced data type. So we are going to look at example of them. Start the first one. Example number one is lists. Number one is lists. So what is Python lists? So as a Python programmer, whenever you hear lists, then you should understand that it is one of the advanced data structure that can hold multiple value in a specific memory location. So how do we define list officially? You can say list is an ordered, that is the emphasis, ordered and mutable. So I'm going to break down all these terms. List is an ordered and mutable, which means, let me quickly emphasize it, which means what? Changeable. Which means changeable. Which means what? Changeable. That is the meaning of what? That mutable. So when we say it's mutable, it means that the value stored in it can be what? Manipulated. For example, you can have a value in a list, then you can say, okay, I want to change that value, or I want to delete it, or I want to even add more value to it, which means that what? You can tamper with it. That is what makes it what? Mutable. All right, so mutable, collection of elements. So in the element here represents the value, enclosed in square brackets. So we need to understand the type of brackets we use in initiating or declaring what? Python list. So the square brackets we are talking about, I believe we all know it. Square brackets is this one. So that is the bracket you use to hold the values within a list. So let's look at a real life example. For example, a businessman that have maybe shop, or could be online shop or physical shop, they store, products in that shop. So which means that what? A list, just like shopping lists, where the list of products are stored, that you can now what? Display or access them from that particular storage. So let's look at the example. What is the syntax? Remember, I've advised us before now that one of the secrets of learning programming is understanding the syntax of any function you are working with. So as we proceed, there are two things I want you to pay attention to across these various types of data structure we want to look at. So when we are talking about lists, take note of the type of brackets we are using, and take note of how we are declaring the values. It's very important. So how do we declare lists? Remember I said it's just like a variable that is now used to store multiple values. So I can say, okay, let's put it in a form of a task. So let's say the first task we are given under this is that we are to create a Python list to store fruits, for example, to store fruits. So let's say you are a businessman and you are creating an app, and people comes in to buy fruits. So you want to now store all the collection of the fruits in your list. So how do we create that? I will start by saying the name of the list, let's say fruits, and then assign. Remember, under operator, talk about assignment operator, where I explain to us that the single equal sign does not mean equality. Instead, it means what? Assignment. All right, so assign, I will just mention the type of bracket that is used. So which means that we want to throw values into what? This list. The instruction says that what? Those values are enclosed in what? The square bracket. So which means you activate the square bracket. So we are still going to borrow the variable concept. Under variable, I told us that when you are storing, since we said variables are container, which are used to hold value within a program. Now, I will also emphasize on certain principles that are used to hold values within variables, where I told us that if we understand an integer, so when we are storing it in a variable, we don't need to quote it because it's a number. And then if we are storing a string, that is text, like my name, Prosper, I have to quote it. So that same rule still exists when you are storing values in any of these advanced data structure. So now I want to declare the list of fruits that I want to hold in fruits. So now the fruits are strings. So for that reason, I am going to put them in what? The string notation. So the first one, let's say apple. Then you separate them with comma. Another one is, let's say what? Orange. You separate with comma. The next one is, let's say banana. So let's say I have just these three words value. Now you can see what I was saying. If not that we understand that, oh, I can actually use advanced data structure to hold multiple values. I will have created three different variables. One variable will store apple. The second variable will store orange. The third variable will store banana. And then when users start using the app, you see that the app will be too busy, because each time you launch the app will initialize all the variables. In other words, we activate all the variables with the intention that the user may want to call value from them. So that means you are keeping the app too busy. But now we have simplified it by saying that you only give attention to fruits, and then inside it you access apple, inside it you access orange, inside it you access what? Banana. I hope somebody is following. Please let me get a response.
Yes.
Yes, sir, we are following.
All right.
Following, sir.
All right, good. So now, so this is our list. So now the question now is that how do we access lists values? How do we access list value? Now, which means how do we print? Let's say this is the back end of our app, and we have a user interface design. That is, the user will not be seeing this. So how can we display this apple, orange, banana to the user, since they are not going to have access to your back end where you have programmed it like this? So remember our print command. So if I want to print all the values, so I'm going to say print, then you simply just call the name of what? The list, which is fruit. And then if I run it in my console terminal, I should say all the words, the elements or the value in the word, the list outputted. Now, remember there was a time I taught us how do we even check whether Python actually recognizes this as a list? How are we even sure whether it is not Mr. Prosper that says this format is a list? Now, remember that this is just to refresh your memories, what we have done. Now, if I want to check, that is what? To check type of data. Remember, we are going to say print. So right now we are asking Python to tell us what type of data is this fruit. So it's going to tell us whether it is a list or is a variable. So we are going to say type inside the print bracket. So just like you are nesting a sub function in what? A main function. So the main function here is print, and then the type is inside. Then you pass the name of the fruit inside it. So which means you are saying that the type, after checking the type of data it is, then whatever output you have, give it to what? To print, to display it what? To the user. So if I run this code now, you see that what? It outputted it as a list, which is just a confirmation that this particular code structure is Python what? List. And it is used to hold multiple values. So I'm going to give us 5 minutes to try this. I think 5 minutes is too much. 5 minutes to try this. Just create a list like this. It can be a list of anything. You can say product, you list your product name or whatever. So 5 minutes to achieve this for those that are coding alongside with me. So when I come back, we start looking at some other things, how we can look at some functions that can be used to manipulate lists elements. After creating it, there might be a scenario where somebody can say, oh, remove the orange. Somebody can say, oh, no, add the fourth element. Somebody can say, oh, print only what? Apple. So all of these, we will look into them when we come back from a 5 minutes break. So you can start your classwork. And once you are done, please kindly unmute and notify me. If you want me to see your screen, you can as well share your screen. So classwork starts now. Journey with your laptop.
I'm joining with my laptop.
Okay, so I would have loved to. Let me just say sharp. Just share your laptop. Let's see what you have done. Briefly.
Okay.
Just share it.
Now let me disable so I can share.
Okay, let me do that. Just give me. All right, you can go ahead now. Go ahead and share your screen.
I'm sharing now.
Right. Okay. So you created a list of item products. Okay. All right. You can stop sharing. Thank you. Others, please, I encourage us to follow the same trend. We come back to when we observe another break, and we come back to another person's screen. All right. So let's look at one more thing. Now, let's assume that we want to assess how to access lists specific item or elements. For example, we are asked to print only apple from fruits lists. Let's say we are to print only apple from fruit list. So how are we going to, because when we say print fruit, it printed out all the elements in that word list. So if I want to display to user just one of the elements. Now remember one of the concepts that we have learned where we were dealing with variable, where I told us that there is what we call indexing. Indexing, where I said where you have item in an array in Python and even other programming languages, the very first one is each of them has numerical what? Positioning. So which means that apple is at what? 0, while orange is at 1. Sorry for this. And then why this is at what? 2. If you remember, so we are still going to borrow that concept to achieve this particular task. So which means that for me to print an element of a list, I need to identify their index number. So knowing that Apple is at index 0, so I will just simply say print. Then you will select the name of the list where you want to access that particular item from. So this is just like you saying that, yes, I want to access a value from this container. And then you use the square bracket, and then you supply the index number, which is 0. So if I run this code now, it's going to output only the value at 0 index. So let's run it and see. You can see that you ended up printing only Apple. All right. I hope that is clear. Can I get a response? I hope that is clear.
No, yes, sir, that one is not clear, sir.
Okay, now I guess you are just joining, because if you have been with us from variable, what I did now is what we played with. Now, what we are saying is that in programming, when you have item in an array, just like the way we have apple, orange, there are invisible numbers representing their location, which can be used to access them individually. And the way programming counts things is that the first one will never be counted as 1. The first one will be counted as 0. And the logic we established then was that programming uses what the value you have before the value you want to count. For example, before you count apple, how many value do you have? Nothing. That is why it's interpreted to 0. Now, before you count orange, how many value you will have, be counted? Or you will have counted. You will have counted apple as 1. So, 0. You will have counted apple 0. Then, or let's take it this way. You will have counted apple as 1, and then before you get to it. So, which means that you are using the apple as a value to read the positioning of orange. So when I get to banana, for me to know the index number of banana, it means I will now use the counting of apple and orange, which means I will have counted 2, and then I will give that to banana. So that is the logic. So for example, if I change this 0 to 1, it's going to output a different fruit. I hope that is clear now. I hope that is clear now.
Very clear, very, very clear.
Okay, good. So,
yeah, it's clear, sir.
Okay, so now let's proceed. Now we want to look at if I want to print 2 of them at the same time. Let's say I want to print apple and orange, right? So I'm going to just write it almost the same logic. You put the fruits, which is the list, and then you introduce the square bracket also. Then after that, you use the same index. I'll say, okay, start from index 0, then you use column to index 1. So which means that this is slicing. In other words, you are going to print value at from 0 index 2. So you can only print it serially like that. So you can see that with this, I'm able to print from sorry, that is still what happened here. Okay, yeah, when you are slicing, please take note of this. It's good as it happened like this. When you are slicing, just like you have the cutlass or the knife, that particular portion of, let's say we want to slice orange now, that particular portion the knife will pierce through, will be damaged. So that is why it's called out only apple. And meanwhile, we were expecting to have 2 of them. So which means that the knife was directly on orange. So that is why we got apple. So if I wanted to include orange, so I'll change here to 2, so that the knife will be on banana, and then it will slice apple and and the orange. So you can see it now. So that is the logic. So never expected to see the last index or the ending what index. Okay, I hope that is clear. Can I get a response also? I hope this explanation is understood before I proceed. Are we good?
No, because when I did similar thing, I experienced what you're saying now.
Okay.
I see that you are beginning with the 0 is apple, and then you have to jump to go to 2, which is banana.
Yes.
Then assuming which means to print apple and orange will not go.
To print apple and orange, yes, you cannot use slides. It will not go. It will go.
Okay. Because I
Yes,
tried it and
yes,
didn't.
it will go. Okay, so now let's look at, I just wanted us to look at that. Now let's look at Python lists. Python lists. Manipulate functions. So this is also very important for us to understand. You know, there's what we call hard coding and soft coding. We need to understand it. So you know why all these functions are, are put in place by Python. So Python did not just wake up and say, okay, after creating a list, there should be functions that the users or the programmer can always use to reach out to the list without manually adjusting the initial word list. So that is where the concept of hard coding and soft coding comes in. So we have hard coding in a situation whereby, for example, I want to add another fruit to this list. Let's say I want to add a cashew to this list. Hard coding requires that you come here and then you put a comma and then you create it. But soft coding requires that there should be a method that can be used to send that cashew into this list without me having to come here. That is soft coding, and that is the best practice. So for us to be able to flow with that soft coding is the reason why Python made available all these manipulating functions. So if I'm to define them, we can say that these are methods, because they are like pieces of functions. So sometimes we call them methods, sometimes we call them what? Functions. So in programming, when you hear method, is used to refer to a very light function. And then when you hear function, then you know that what is a known function. All right. So now, for example, we want to add, so that you know, I want us to relate with them, with live scenario. So let's say what? Add, we are given this task, and the task is add a cashew. Add cashew to fruit list. Let's say you have created a fruit list, and then you are asked to add cashew to it without going back to it. So here you are now going to ask yourself, okay, there should be a function that I can use to send the cashew to that list. And that function, so here we are going to use using append. So that is the function or the method we are going to use, append function. Make sure that you are taking note of this. So how does append function work? Append function allow us to add a new element to the end. That is the emphasis. So I will need to know where exactly is adding it. So you can only use the append function, number one, where you are adding just one value. Number two, where you are particularly concerned, you are interested in adding it to the end. So if these two criteria are not met, particularly the last criteria, which means you must you decide that you are adding that value to the end, there's no point of using the append function. All right, and that is exactly what the question says. So what is now the syntax? To pay attention to syntax is very important. That's the secret of programming. So the syntax is this. You are talking about adding additional value to an existing container with what 3 value at the moment: apple, orange, and banana. Now, you must call that value first, and then you now concatenate. You must call that value and then concatenate the function to it. And what is concatenation? Concatenation means you are joining two things. So you are appending, that is what you are joining the append function to what? To the container where you want to pass in the value. So which means that we are going to write 2 lines of code. One is for updating it, while the other one is to what? To output it. So the first line of code is going to be, I'll start by calling the existing list, and then I will use dots. So that dot in Python is what we use, for concatenation. Then I will now call what? The append. So the moment you type the first 2 letters, because I'm using an advanced or prescribed IDE for Python, you see that what? It has already what? Pop up what? The function structure that append, set, and then the object. So now I will just click here to activate it. Now, what are you sending into what? Truth. If it is a string, it should be quoted. If it is a number, it shouldn't be what? Quoted. So I'm sending what? Let's say what? Cashew. So cashew is a string. So I'll put it in what? In a string notation. Cashew. Now, I have to execute it. Once you run this code, what Python has done at the background is that as we talk right now, Python has already sent this cashew to this, and that cashew will come after what? Banana. So how do we now check? You have to reprint. You have to reprint. So this time around, if I say print fruit, that will enable me to know whether cashew has been added. So I have to reprint the what? The fruit. So I'll print what? The fruit again, and then I'll check the output if I have cashew added. Perfect. So this is what we call soft coding. You don't need to start scrolling down looking for where you initiated the list and start adding it manually. All you need to do is to have an idea of these manipulative or manipulation functions. So based on the challenge you are facing, that will determine which one you are to consult. So like I said, that you can only use append to add one. I cannot say, okay, for example, I want to add cashew and pineapple. It's not possible. So I will not think of another function. So we are still going. So just know that append is for adding one and to the end of an existing list. So I'm giving us just 2 minutes to achieve this for those that are coding alongside with me. And once I get the first person that have done it, and then we move on. So 1 minute to achieve this task. It's a very simple task. Ask questions. Somebody want to ask question? Please go ahead with your question.
Sir, it's not a question. I'm done.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right. So, like I said, once I've gotten a reply from one person, I continue. So now let's look at another function, another method, still under list. Another method is
yes, my own worked.
Okay, so all right. Now let's assume that we want to add additional item to the list, but not at the end. We want to define
where we want it to be added ourselves. So for example, now I can say, okay, within this list, within this fruit list, I want it to appear, I want to add additional item, but I want it to be the first item, which means I should shift what up. I can choose wherever I want it to be. So that is the next function we want to look at. If the scenario or if the case is that nature. So which means what? Adding how to add new elements to a specific location. To a specific location. So the task here is that add, let's say pineapple. Let's say pineapple to the fruits list first position. So here, in this kind of scenario, like I said, it may not be first, can be in between, or we can even change it to, okay, let it come in between cashew and orange, or anywhere you want it. So here, we are going to be using a function called what? Using insert. So once the case is this, you have to use what? Insert. And what will be the syntax? The same thing. So I'm going to start by calling or referencing the what? The list. Then concatenate what? Insert. Insert. Now, in the case of insert, we are going to use that same indexing concept. Now, if you want the new item to come first, then you specify the what? The position first. If you want to be at index 1, you put 1. At index 2, you put 2. But in this case, based on our task, it's going to be the first one. So for that reason, I was okay, let it be at what? Index 0. Then you put a comma. So after the comma, then you can now define the item itself. So the item I'm adding is what? Pineapple. That is the item. Now, to print it, like I said, if you run it, the update has what? Taking place. Now, for us to see the update, we have to reprint. So I'll come here and say print again, print fruit. So if I can find the new added element at the specified position, then that tells me that what? We have achieved our target. So you can see it. Now pineapple is now taking the first position, and then apple has now been what? Shifted. All right, so I will just take like 2 or 3 before I give us time to practice. But let me get the response if that is clear first, at least from one person, before I look at the next one.
No, it's not clear because the way this is making us not to see it clearly. When you wrote fruit dot insert brackets, what again? Is this 0 comma?
Yes,
there's
0
something
comma.
is showing there.
No, leave that one. That one comes out automatically. That index you are seeing and the object is not your business. You all just type 0 comma and then just put the string and call the item. So I'm getting this information because I'm using
We've gotten it. We've gotten it.
All right, so please can we mute back now so that we can let's mute. Thank you. So I will just take a couple of them before I allow us to practice. So that is for that. Now let's assume that we want to add 3 to 4 items into that list at the same time. 3 to 4 items into that list at the same time. How do you go about it? Because I told us that append can only what? Add 1 per time. So let's say how to add multiple. How to add multiple items to Python lists. So the task here is that add to other fruit again. Say, okay, let's say add mango. Let's say we are adding to and pawpaw to fruits lists. So the syntax, the function we are going to use, using, in this case, we are using extend. This is the function you are going to use, not insert. Extend. So extend is a function that that allows us to add multiple elements from another list towards probably the current list, if you like. So now the syntax is going to be this. So we are still going to invoke the existing list, and then we concatenate the extend, and then you see the syntax self and what? Iterable. So which means that word iterable means what? It's going to hover. That is what? More than one. That is the meaning. So I will just activate it. And then because we want to add two or more than one, we cannot pass them inside the extend function directly. We are going to use the square bracket to enclose them because we are sending multiple at once. Then within the square bracket, that is where you now put your string if they are string value. So let's say here, like I said, we are adding a purple as the first one. While I'm still inside the square bracket, then the second one, what did I say I want to put there? A mango. So let's say let's add three at once. Let's add three at once. So let's say I want to add a pear. Now, if I execute it, acknowledge, then if I want to see it, I have to reprint. Print fruit again. Print fruit. Then if I print, we have all the items what added. We have all the items added. Remember that they will be added to what? To the end. So that is for that. So let's take another one, but let me get a response if that is clear first. Before, after this third one, I will allow us to go over them before we proceed. But I just need to know if that is well explained first. I hope that is clear. Can I get a response from one person?
Yes, sir. I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, when you wanted to add cashew, you use append. Then you put to them the normal column we are using and the normal brackets. Then when you want to add another fruit, which is pineapple, then you wanted the position of that pineapple, which is first, then you add 0. If it is the second, it will be 1. Then here you are adding three fruits, which is purple, mango, and pear. So then you use 10. Then moreover, the bracket you use were 2, the normal bracket and then the square bracket. Is it that if I want to add one fruit, I'm going to use the normal bracket, and if I want to add
No, in as
if
much
I
we are
want to add
using,
one
is
with
a
the
very good,
position, then I will use number which is started from 0, 1, 2. Then I will use the normal bracket. But is it that if I want to add 3, then I will extend the normal bracket, then the square bracket, then the 3 fruit, then the the square bracket, then I will not add the square. Like, is it that I want each of them add their own command? If it is 1, it has its own command. If I want to add the position, it has its own command. If I want to add 3, it also add its own command. Is it like that?
Now, let me just summarize your question. Now, the reason why Python has this different manipulation function because they are unique. You don't use all of them if they don't match, or you don't use any one if it doesn't match with your challenge. For example, if your intention is to add only one item, you have no business of using extend. Peradventure, you are using extend, it must still be in square bracket. That is the syntax. That's why I always say pay attention to the syntax. Every function have their own implementation structure. And except it calls for it, then you shouldn't use it. So if you want to add by specifying the positioning, the one Python has recommended is insert. But if you are not adding based on specific position, you have no business using what? Inserts. I hope I've answered your question. So you just have to know their respective function and know when to use them based on the challenge you are facing. I hope I'm clear with that, sir. You cannot come here.
You are clear, sir.
Good, thank you. All right. So now let's look at one more. Now we have been adding, and now we want to look at how do I even remove? How do I remove? It's part of what, because why all these are possible? Because of the definition I give to us then, which says what? Mutable. So all these changes that we are doing is to confirm that statement that says that lists is a mutable what? Data structure, which means that what? Items can be changed. You can see the way we are changing. So if we can add, then we should also be able to what? To remove. So how to remove elements from Python lists. So just before I continue, I want to quickly give this information. I believe it will be of helpful to somebody. July 20, that is July 25th. We are going to start another Python training, and we are actually targeting holiday students. So if you have any brother or any sister that want to learn Python, just like you are learning now, we are already registering students. We're already running ad for people are already joining, and we are giving that particular training comprises Python, HTML, and CSS, not just Python. So, but each person is paying 20,000. But people that are registered now before that 25, we are collecting 10,000 from them. So if you have anyone around you, let them take advantage of that section. It's very important. So they are going to learn 3 languages. That is what? App coding and web coding. Right? So that is just an information. So you can share my contact. I must commend Mr. Clement. I think Mr. Clement have recommended not less than 2 to 3 persons already. Some of us that are here, please keep recommending the platform, please. Thank you. Okay, so now let's look at what is the task here. The task here, or the function we are going to use here, using remove. So Python also has a method called remove, which is used to take off an item from a defined list. So what is the task here? The task here is that we are to remove.
Please, sir, we can't hear you very well. I don't know if it's from my side.
Hey, can someone else confirm? Can someone else confirm? Let me be sure. Someone else.
I think it should be from your side. I'm hearing you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's mute back. So maybe you check your network. All right, so the task here is remove apple from fruits lists. Remove apple from what? Fruit lists. Now, what is going to be the syntax? Always pay attention to syntax, the structure. So here we are going to call that same existing list and then concatenate the remove. And then what we are going to do here is that particular item you want to remove, you are not going to remove it with the index number. You are going to remove it with the actual value, which is what? Apple. So you are going to acknowledge it as a string like this. and then you call it just the way it is. So you are telling Python that what locate this particular list and take away the apple inside it. So if I run this code, it has been acknowledged. So if I want to check if actually the apple has been removed, so I have to reprint for the update. So I have to reprint what fruit, and then I should be able to know if apple is no longer there. So you can see that apple has gone. So that is how to use the remove function. All right, so I think at this point, I'll give us 5 minutes to try the 3 additional functions before we continue. So when I come back, we still have a few of them to look at. Still have a few of them before, if the time permits us, we go to another data structure. We have about 5 or 4 major data structure, and everything we are learning since is still under one, which is list. Right, so 5 minutes break. Make sure you are working on.
No, sir, it's not a question. I'm done.
Okay, that means you are following me. That is good. Okay, so let me wait for all that. Let's observe the 5 minutes.
I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
So I add sneaker to the item first position. Then I added singlet to the multiple.
Okay.
Then
All
I
right.
remove singlet again. Yes.
Okay.
That is where the 3 things say you should do.
Okay. Okay, let's continue. I believe others must have asked you. I think, okay, somebody said she has done it before. Okay, so at least I have to put that I've done it now. So we can proceed now. We still have few of them. So as it stands now, we just try as much as possible to complete the methods under the list. So I will know that in our next class, we should be able to cover the remaining ones. Because those remaining ones will also draw some insight from this very one that we are looking at. So it's not going to take us time to understand. Okay, so let's look at another method, which is called pop. This is another method, which is called pop. So what is pop used for? It's used to remove. This is used to remove elements. Is to remove elements based on its index and return the removed value. So now, let's say we want to let's say we want to remove elements at, let's say we write fruit concatenates the function, which is pop. Now remember, it's talking about index. That is what we want to remove element at index 2. So what we have there, which of the elements will be at index 2 will be banana. So let's say I remove this, and then if you run it, that will have been implemented. So let's try and print again and see if we have successfully removed that particular element. So let's print fruit again, just like we have been printing. So you can see that banana has what? Gone from here. Banana is no longer there. So it's also a very good logic for you to understand, just like the way we use the same index to add element to a specific location using the insert function. So this one is used to remove element by its or with its index number, like I define it. So it is also very important we understand it. So here we have another command which is called sort command. Of course, sort is for rearranging item. Before we talk about sort, where it will work more better for us, let's create a number list. So let's say we are given this to create a number list. That is what? A list that contains what? Numbers. So I will just say what? Numbers, let's say equals to, and there we select, let's say 90, 60. So we have this list of, and then so here the function of this sort, let me see if I can add the definition for those that are writing. So the sort function is used to arrange elements, in ascending order by default. Now, the task here is that, let's say our task is what? Sort number list. Let's say what? Sort number list. Now, if we are sorting number lists, what will be the syntax? So we are going to call, just like what we have been doing, we are going to reference the existing number list, and then we are going to concatenate sort to it. So just like this, without you putting anything inside the bracket. So the function understand that, okay, this is to sort the items in number list in ascending order. So if I run it, those items have been sorted. So let me reprint again if I can get the update. Reprint numbers, print numbers. Then you notice that the arrangement have changed. This is ascending order. Now we have another one which will reverse it. So the reverse case is what? Like, so this is not like direct descending order, but the current order you have to reverse it. So which, if you are working with number, might give you what? The descending order. Now that will form the next one, which is what? Reverse. So I just want to take the remaining one, then you take your time to practice them before the next class. Reverse function. So how do we define this? Reverse function is used to reverse the order, of elements in a list, to reverse the order of elements in a list. So to apply it, we write the same code. We call the existing number list, and then we concatenate the reverse function. The reverse function. So we are not putting anything inside. So if you run it, the item will have been reversed. So let's print again to get the update. So all this, once you understand the logic, it's very simple to master. So I run again, you see that now the reverse case, or that is the opposite, is what we have here right now. Let me get a response from at least one person that we are following before I continue. Are we following?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one is count. I will just take the remaining one at once so that we can go and practice them as an assignment. Count. So what do we do with the count function? So the count return the number of times an item appears in a list. An item appear in a list. That is for the count. So for example, let me create another list, or let me just create another list for better explanation. Let's say I have a list of 90, 90, 40, 40, 50, Now I want to know how many times do we have 40, or how many times do we have 90? So I just want to check whether I have a duplicated value. So, which means the task is what? Count how many times is 90. So the syntax is going to be, you are going to simply write, this time around you are outputting it. So you just say print, write it direct, then print the lists you want to count the number of times a particular value appear. So which is what? Nums, which is nums. Then inside it, we will now concatenate the counts. We will now concatenate the count, and then you pass in that particular value. You want to know how many of it exists. Let's say I want to check for how many times do we have 90 in that list. So if I run it to tell me that we have it twice, so as you can see, 90 2 times. So let me also get a response from at least one person that, sir, is well explained or understood before I move to the next one. I just want to complete the most known functions on that list. So I will end the class. Okay, good. So the next one is index. Index. All these, where we start complex programming, you see all of them playing out. All these that looks basic. So that is why it's good as we progress this way. Now the index function returns the position of an element. For example, now when we talk about indexing, let's say I just want to check. Maybe I want to print, let's say I want to print 50, and I'm having issue. I don't want to count. So I just want to use this function to find out, okay, what position is 50? So that I will now write that command, the name of the list, and say square bracket, then I will just use the index to print it out. So let's put it like this. What is the index position of 50 in norms list. Let's say this is a task. So the syntax is I'm going to print norm, right? Then the function we are using is index. So I'll say dot index. So I will specify, okay, I want to know the index of 50. That way I have 50. Yes, I want to know the index of 50 within that list. So let's run it. It returns the index to be what? 4. So let's go and check with that logic that I explained to us before. This is 50. So if this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So which means the program is correct. So now having this idea now, I can now say, oh, okay, I want to print it out. So I can now say what? Print norms. So I don't want to do the manual counting. So square brackets, then I'll put what? 4 there. And then if I run it, that will output what? 50. So it could just be that you just want to know the index. Maybe you're having issue, counting or knowing the index number. So you can use this first function to find out the index, and then you use that number return to call out that particular item. Let me get a response if that is also clear before I look at. I think that is the that should be the last one. We have touched all the major manipulative function under list. So one more thing I'm going to show us before we end the class is how to check Python, how to check lists related functions. Because you may be wondering, where am I getting all these functions from? How did I know that? Oh, they are in the Python. So anytime you want to check for lists, I want to know functions that are created to manipulate lists. So I will just say print. Then I will just say dir, and then supply the data type you want to check each function. So if I run this, check what happened, Python will list out. So this is where I'm actually getting most of this function. So if I scroll down now, let's go to the end. So there are still many of them that you can go and master. You can see this is count that we have used. This is extend. This is what? Index. This is insert. This is pop. This is remove. This is reverse. This is sort. So this is append. So this is the logic. Now, it's either you go this way or you can go to Python documentation. Like I told us when we started, that is one of the reasons why Python is very popular, because it has a lot of documentation. In other words, it has a very large community. So any issue, any app you are developing, whatever you are doing, if you have issue, there are people who have designed it or who are doing something similar to that you can ask questions from. So that's the community. So for example, I don't want to go through writing that particular code to review all this list. So I want to go through the documentation. So because the benefit of the documentation is that it will explain the syntax. So that is where some of us experts goes to master things that Python has made available. So when you are learning Python or any other language, you must understand where to access the documentation. For example, I want to access Python list documentation. So I will just go to Google, just type Python list documentation. Just type this, then just watch what is going to happen. So you can see data structure, Python, whatever documentation, you click on it. You can go to W3 School, that is for beginners like you, like this. So you can see that because I tap list, you can see all the functions that we have explained, they are here. And their syntax are also listed. So for those that are going to practice, even beyond the one, you can see we did not use clear. So just make sure you play around other ones. So you can even see some code that were written and some practical work that were carried out. So this is how you can, check some of the things you are learning. Once you know the name of that function, go and check for its documentation. So be able to expand your knowledge beyond the teacher's version. All right, so I believe we have completed everything about Python, the first advanced data structure. So in our next meeting, we are going to look at the next, we still have like 3 of them because there are 4 major advanced data structure that we work with when we are developing apps. So in the next class, I'll be able to finish the 3 of them, as a matter of fact. So this one is the one that creates a background of all of them. Once you can handle this, then it's very simple to understand the order. Any question, please? There's no questions, so that we can end your assignments. For those of you that were not writing your code within that time I was giving us classwork, please, when the video gets to you, make sure that you go through the video. Don't reply me that you have watched the video. It's not about watching the video. It's about watching it and implementing it. Pause it line by line and execute it. And if possible, you use different example or you expand your knowledge scope. Any question? Any question? I think I have 3 to 4 persons that submitted the last assignments. I appreciate that. It's a huge encouragement. All right, so if there's no question, then we'll end it here. Thank you very much. So see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Stay blessed. Have a blessed week.